Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So in our last class, we heard the finale of the joking episode of Krishna and Rukmini. And we learned that Krishna confirmed everything that Radha said in response to all of Krishna's negative statements, putting himself down. So when Rukmini completely refuted correctly, philosophically, then Krishna said yes. And Krishna admitted that Rukmini was his favorite queen. Then we also heard how we got a glimpse into how Krishna was living in Dwaraka with his 16,000 palaces. And in upcoming chapters, we will be hearing more and more of how Krishna led the ideal life in Dwaraka as a householder. So today we pick up, and the first we have 3 episodes. This first one is called the Yadu Dynasty. So please follow along as best you can. Lord Krishna's 8 principal queens are Rukmini, Satyabhama, Jambavati, Nagnajiti, Kalindi, Lakshmana, Mitravinda, and Bhadra. Of the 16,108 queens of Krishna, each of whom had 10 sons, there is the following list of the sons of these first 8 queens. By Rukmini, Krishna had the following 10 sons: Pradyumna, Charudeshna, Sudeshna, Charudeha, Sucharu, Charugupta, Bhadracharu, Charuchandra, Vicharu, and Charu. None of them were inferior in their qualities to their divine father, Lord Krishna. The names of Satyabhama's 10 sons are Bhanu, Subhanu, Svarbhanu, Prabhanu, Bhanuman, Chandrabhanu, Brihadbhanu, Atibhanu, Sribhanu, and Pratibhanu. The 10 sons of the next queen, Jambavati, were headed by Samba, and their names were Samba, Sumitra, Purujit, Shatajit, Sahasrajit, Vijay, Chitraketu, Vasuman, Dravida, and Kratu. Lord Krishna was specifically very affectionate to these sons of Jambavati. The 10 sons Lord Krishna had by his wife Satya, the daughter of King Nagnajit, are as follows: Veera, Chandra, Ashvasena, Chitragu, Vegavan, Vrisha, Ama, Shanku, Vasu, and Kunti. But amongst all of them, Kunti was very powerful. Krishna's 10 sons, headed by Kalindi, are as follows: Sruta, Kavi, Vrisha, Veera, Subahu, Bhadra, Shanti, Darsha, Purnamasa, and the youngest son, Somaka. The 10 sons Lord Krishna begot in his next wife, Lakshmana, the daughter of the king of Madras province, and thus was also known as Madra. Those 10 sons were named Pragosh, Gatravan, Singha, Bala, Prabala, Urdvaga, Mahashakti, Saha, Oja, and Aparajita. The 10 sons of Krishna's next wife, Mitra Vinda, were as follows: Vrika, Harsha, Anila, Gridra, Vardhana, Unnada, Mahangsa, Pavana, Vani, and Kshuddhi. The 10 sons of Krishna's next wife, Bhadra, were named Sangramajit, Brihatsena, Shura, Praharana, Arijit, Jaya, Subhadra, Vama, Ayur, and Satyaka. Besides these 8 chief queens, Krishna had 16,100 other wives, and all of them also had 10 sons each. These were headed by Rohini. So Rohini is the leader of all the 16,100 queens that Krishna got when he rescued them from the palace of Bauma Asura. So Rohini, you'll hear this name from time to time. This is different than Rohini, the mother of Balaram. This is a different Rohini. And she's the leader of the 16,100 other princesses. So Diptiman, Tamratapta, and others were the sons of Lord Krishna and Rohini. Each of Krishna's 16,108 queens also had one daughter, which was headed by Charumati, and she was the daughter of Rukmani. And each of the 10 sons of each of the 16,108 queens also had 10 sons. The eldest son of Rukmani, Pradyumna, was married with Mayavati from his very birth. And afterwards, Pradyumna also married Rukmavati, the daughter of his maternal uncle Rukmi. From Rukmavati, Pradyumna had a son named Aniruddha. In this way, Krishna's family, namely Krishna and his wives, along with their sons and grandsons, and even great-grandsons, all combined together to include very nearly 1 billion family members. Rukmi, the elder brother of Krishna's first wife, Rukmani, was greatly harassed and insulted in his fight with Krishna. But on the request of Rukmani, Rukmi's life was saved. But since then, Rukmi held a great grudge against Krishna and was always inimical toward Krishna. Nevertheless, Rukmi's daughter married Krishna's son, and Rukmi's granddaughter married Krishna's grandson, Aniruddha. So this fact appeared a little astonishing to Maharaj Parikshit when he heard of this from Shukadeva Goswami. And therefore he said, I am indeed surprised that Rukmi and Krishna, who were so greatly inimical towards one another, could again be united by marital relationships between their descendants. Parikshit Maharaj was curious about the mystery of this incident, and therefore Parikshit inquired further from Shukadeva Goswami. Because Shukadeva Goswami was a perfect yogi, nothing was hidden from his power of insight. A perfect yogi like Shukadeva Goswami can see past, present, and future in all details. This is called Tri-kala-gya. Therefore, from such yogis or mystics, nothing can be concealed. So when Parikshit Maharaj inquired from Shukadeva Goswami answered as follows: Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, before we continue, I would just like to make a comment on the section we just heard. And that is that the Srimad Bhagavatam and subsequent supporting Vaishnava scriptures give us so much detail about God. In other religions, although they profess to believe in God, you will not find any other religion on the planet of the earth with so much detailed information about God. So this was a big factor in me converting from Catholicism or Christianity to becoming a Hare Krishna devotee, because I was super impressed with the detail and the volume of knowledge on the science of God that is available to us from the Gaudiya Vaishnava Shastras, headed by Srimad Bhagavatam. So I very much like this understanding. There's so much detail. As I have said, I even said it recently, and I've said it hundreds and hundreds of times. ISKCON's Srimad Bhagavatam is the size of 18 Bibles. So the Bible is a book about God, but Srimad Bhagavatam is 18 times the information. This is a big factor for me. I want to understand this science of God. Okay, let's go to now our second episode, which is entitled The King of Kalinga Criticizes Krishna and Balaram. The king of Kalinga was a friend of Rukmi, and he gave him the ill advice to play chess with Balaram and thus defeat Balaram in a bet. Among Kshatriya kings, betting and gambling in chess was not uncommon. For if someone challenged a Kshatriya to play on the chessboard, the Kshatriya could not deny the challenge. And this reminds me of Yudhishthir's predicament. Sometimes people, they question, why did Yudhishthir allow himself to be cheated by Shukuni, not once, but twice in a gambling match? So sometimes people point this out, that it's Yudhishthir's and the Pandavas' own fault that they were banished to the forest for so many years. They even betted their wife Draupadi. But what people don't know is that actually Yudhishthir's performance of gambling was simply done as a matter of respect to Dhritarashtra. In other words, Yudhishthir was so pious, so moral to a fault, that even though he knew he was going to lose, because Yudhishthir was not expert at gambling, and Yudhishthir knew that Shukuni was going to cheat, still he allowed this to go on simply because Yudhishthir always sets the perfect example. So he did not want to appear challenging to Dhritarashtra. He wanted to show that he was submissive, subordinate, and obedient. He wanted to teach by his example. So that is why Yudhishthira allowed this. It was simply his duty to comply with the wishes of Dhritarashtra. So as Prabhupada has mentioned here, if someone challenged the Kshatriya to play on the chessboard, the Kshatriya could not deny the challenge. Sri Balaramaji was not a very expert chess player, and this was known to the king of Kalinga. So Rukmi was advised to retaliate against the family members of Krishna by challenging Balaram to play chess. Although not an expert chess player, Sri Balaramaji was very enthusiastic in sporting activities. Balaram accepted Rukmi's challenge and sat down to play. The betting was with gold coins, and Balaram first of all challenged with 100 coins, then 1,000 coins, then 10,000 coins. Each time Balaram lost and Rukmi was victorious. So Balaram's losing the game was an opportunity for the king of Kalinga to criticize Krishna and Balaram. Thus, the king of Kalinga was talking jokingly and purposely showing his teeth to Balaram. Because Balaram was the loser in the game, Balaram became a little intolerant of the sarcastic, joking words and became somewhat agitated. But again, Rukmi challenged Balaram and made a bet of 100,000 gold coins. But fortunately, this time, Balaram won. Nonetheless, out of cunningness, Rukmi claimed that Balaram was the loser and that he himself had won. Wow. This I find very interesting, because this has been going on for the past 2 years here in America. The loser refused to admit that he lost the election. Rascal! Demon! Yes. So history repeats itself. Just see the character of a demon. Just see. Because of this lie, Balaramaji became most angry with Rukmi. Balaram's agitation was so sudden and it was so great that it appeared like a tidal wave in the ocean on a full moon day. Balaram's eyes are naturally reddish, and when Balaram became agitated and angry, his eyes became even more reddish. So this time, Balaram challenged and made a bet of 100 million coins. Balaram ki. And again, Balaram was the winner according to the rules of chess. But again, Rukmi cunningly claimed that he had won. Rukmi appealed to the princes present, and Rukmi especially mentioned the name of the king of Kalinga. All of a sudden, during the dispute, there was a voice from the sky which announced, "For all honest purposes, Balaram is the actual winner of this game. Balaram is being abused. And the statement of Rukmi that he had won is absolutely false. But in spite of this divine voice, Rukmi insisted that Balaram had lost. And by his persistence, it appeared that Rukmi had death upon his head. Falsely puffed up by the ill advice of his friend, the king of Kalinga, Rukmi did not give much importance to the oracle, and Rukmi began criticizing Balaramaji. My dear Balaramaji, you two brothers, cowherder boys only, you and Krishna may be very expert in tending cows, but how can you be expert in playing chess or shooting arrows on the battlefield? These arts are well known only to the princely order. Hearing this kind of pinching talk by Rukmi, and hearing the loud laughter of all the other princes present there, Lord Balaram became as agitated as burning cinders. Balaram immediately took up his club in his hand and without further talk struck Rukmi on the head. And from that one blow, Rukmi fell down immediately and was dead and gone. Thus, Rukmi was killed by Balaram on that auspicious occasion of Aniruddha's marriage. And still, these things are not very uncommon in Kshatriya society. The king of Kalinga, being afraid that he would be the next one attacked, he tried to flee from the scene. But before the king of Kalinga could escape even a few steps, however, Balaramaji immediately captured him. And because the king of Kalinga had always shown his teeth while criticizing Balaram and Krishna, Balaram broke all of the king's teeth with his club. The other princes supporting the king of Kalinga and Rukmi were then also captured. They did not try to retaliate, but they thought it wise to run away from the bloody scene. During this strife between Balaram and Rukmi, Lord Krishna did not utter a word, for Krishna knew that if he supported Balaram, Rukmini would be unhappy. And if Krishna said that the killing of Rukmi was unjust, then Balaram would be unhappy. Therefore, Lord Krishna was silent upon the death of his brother-in-law Rukmi on the occasion of Krishna's grandson's marriage. In this way, Krishna did not disturb his affectionate relationship with either Balaram or Rukmini. So here, I would like to point something out, that there's an expression we have, I don't know if you are aware of this in Panama, but there's a very common expression in America. Silence is golden, golden. So sometimes it's better to keep the mouth shut, because I have lots of experience in the past of opening my mouth, sticking not 1 foot, but 2 feet in my mouth and making a complete jackass. So sometimes it's better to say nothing. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That is called a word to the wise should be sufficient. So after this, the bride and bridegroom were ceremoniously seated on the chariot, and they started for Dwaraka, accompanied by the bridegroom's party. The bridegroom's party was always protected by Lord Krishna, who was also known as Madhusudana, the killer of the Madhu demon. Thus, they left Rukmi's kingdom, Bhojakata, and happily started for Dwaraka. So this name, Madhusudana, is mentioned by in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Prahlad Maharaj, after the killing of his father by Nrsingadev, Prahlad offered a stream of more than 40 prayers to Lord Nrsinga. And one of those prayers, Prahlad said, "O Lord, previously you killed 2 demons, Madhu and Kaitava, at the dawn of creation, because these 2 demons attacked Lord Brahma, trying to steal the Vedas." So at that time, Krishna appeared as Hayagriva, a human form, but the head of a horse, golden colored. So when it says Madhusudan, it's referring to Krishna in that form as Hayagriva. And just like Hindus worship goddess Saraswati for knowledge, Vaishnavas also worship Hayagriva. My son-in-law, when he was studying for the bar exam, he had one small Hayagriva deity, and he was worshiping that every day, and so he passed the bar exam. Again, a word to the wise. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this last episode for today is entitled Pradyumna's and Aniruddha's marriages. Pradyumna, the eldest son of Krishna, born of Rukmini, was Cupid himself. Pradyumna was so beautiful and attractive that the daughter of Rukmi, namely Rukmabati, could not select any husband other than Pradyumna during her Swayamvara. Therefore, in that selection meeting, Rukmabati garlanded Pradyumna in the presence of all the other princes. And when there was a fight among the princes, Pradyumna came out victorious, and therefore Rukmi was obliged to offer his beautiful daughter to Pradyumna. Although enmity always blazed in Rukmi's heart because of his having been insulted by Krishna's kidnapping of his sister Rukmini, Rukmi could not resist consenting to the marriage ceremony just to please Rukmini when his daughter selected Pradyumna as her husband. And so Pradyumna became the son-in-law as well as the nephew of Rukmi. Besides the 10 sons described previously, Rukmini had one beautiful daughter with big eyes. Her name was Charumati, and she was married to the son of Kritavarma, whose name was Bali. Although Rukmi was a veritable enemy of Krishna, Rukmi had great affection for his sister Rukmini, and he wanted to please her in all respects. On this account, when Rukmini's grandson Aniruddha was to be married, Rukmi offered his granddaughter Rochana to Aniruddha. Such marriages between immediate cousins is not very much sanctioned by the Vedic culture. But in order to please Rukmini, Rukmi offered his daughter and granddaughter to the son and grandson of Krishna. In this way, when the negotiation of the marriage of Aniruddha with Rochana was complete, a big marriage party accompanied Aniruddha and started from Dwaraka. They traveled until they reached Bhojakata, which Rukmi had colonized after his sister had been kidnapped by Krishna. This marriage party was led by the grandfather, namely Lord Krishna, accompanied by Lord Balaram, as well as Krishna's first wife, Rukmini. Krishna's son Pradyumna, Jambavati's son Samba, and many other relatives and family members, they all reached the town of Bhojakata, and the marriage ceremony was peacefully performed. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We will answer Sonia's question after we chant the prayers of protection.